Hey everybody, welcome to another Community Pulse podcast. My name is PJ Haggerty. I go by as Splenic on Twitter.
And I'm Jason Hand. I am at Jason Hand on Twitter.
And we are here with Justin Reese from Code and Supply at the Uptime Conference in Pittsburgh. Justin, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, well, I go by Justin X Reese on Twitter to match you guys. But I basically try to make a living out of doing community things. So I run this conference today that we're at, Uptime. Last year we did a conference called Abstractions. And then during the month, or during the rest of the year, I'm running 12 events each month, just getting people to give technical presentations, act together, or just improve themselves somehow in the software field. Also, which we just talked about at the conference, is we have our own scholarship fund. And so, just trying to make people's lives better in the software world somehow.
Now,
I was going to say those 12, you said 12 events per month.
Mm-hmm.
So what are those events like? Or what are you trying to accomplish with that many per month?
Yeah, so we do, Code and Supply has become like a central force to a lot of this community. So the topic-specific events will be under our banner hosted at our workspace. We have, the Python group, and we have a thing called Chapters, which is about web standards, and then we have our own general program, which is just any lecture that we feel that would fit, or any social event, or we do this thing every month called Build Night, which is just a cooperative work night together where everyone brings projects, we get food, and see what happens.
Very cool.
Very cool. So it seems like Code and Supply is kind of, most cities have meetups and they have events, but they might not all be correlated or coordinated by one single entity. But Code and Supply seems to be more of like an umbrella structure that says we want to take care of tech in our city, so that's what we're going after.
Yeah, and I kind of say maybe it's like a framework where we provide infrastructure to people that want to talk about closure or something, because maybe there's not enough people to get a closure meetup going immediately, but maybe there's enough people to do a one-off event, or just get to know each other through hack nights, and then that relationship can grow. So hopefully we provide everything those communities need without the risk, or we empower them to also be stronger than they would be if they tried to do it on their own. We used the money from Abstractions last year, our conference, to get our own workspace. So basically, we're one of the few meetups in the world that has its own actual office that we can host events at.
Very cool.
And we just, that means they never have to look for space, and they don't have to look for sponsors. We just handle all the grunt work and let everyone worry about the topics.
So this particular event that we're at right now sounds like is kind of like the next, not generation, but like the next thing that you've come. You have the abstractions that you did last year. Mm-hmm. Why Uptime? Why did you choose that as a very specific topic?
When we did abstractions, I thought there was a need for something that was very broad, and then lost in the city was our DevOps conference. Because we did that event, people felt that there was no DevOps conference, and it was a need that needed to be filled. And we've had them before in this city, under the DevOps Days umbrella, or under some other umbrella. But we never had our own specialized event that we kind of just did all ourselves, curated our own lineup, and made our own brand around, and did our own special Code and Supply way with kind of certain emotional things that we want to do.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah.
Pretty cool.
So what kind of got you, because I know that this started a while ago, even before Abstractions, Code and Supply was a thing. What got you started? What got you interested in kind of having this sort of community support?
I think that I was doing this already in some capacity as myself. I was hosting Hack Nights. I was leading the Ruby community here in Pittsburgh, and I realized that if I were to continue to do that as an individual, I would eventually either go broke by buying Jimmy John's sandwiches, or I would burn myself out. So I didn't want the community to falter just because of the reliance on one person. I think that a lot of times in cities that have meetups and other things that there's a reliance on one person to organize the event or one relationship with a company to really support a community. And sometimes a company changes their technology. Sometimes a company doesn't want to spend any money in the next quarter on events. Sometimes a person moves between companies and they don't do Ruby anymore. They do JavaScript. So should the entire Ruby community die because someone's changed their technology? No. They're all the same people that are going to these events. They all have a lot in common. So just put it under one thing and cause something that's much bigger and stronger.
So this is my second time coming to Pittsburgh, sort of at Fort Tech conference, second time ever actually. I was here for DevOps Days, which I believe was 2 years ago. I was there as a speaker, and I think we actually maybe met there for that one, just didn't realize it. But there's a couple other people, Colin, Jenny, some others, that seem to be kind of core part of that community within a community, right?
Yeah,
so like, I know a lot of them worked together or still do over at IBM. How do you guys sort of maintain sort of this like grouped kind of, I don't know, system where you guys kind of just keep this whole thing moving together? It seems like you're all very passionate about it. We just saw Colin talking about the scholarship fund. How do you guys kind of keep that motivation going internally to make sure that you keep the community going?
I think I think that Code and Supply is the thing that has held that together, because for a long time IBM was the very crucial key to the technology scene here in Pittsburgh, and it was actually from a startup that was bought by IBM, like just these people that were in this office that all valued community, and now there's less of those people there. A lot of them have moved on to other places, and even Colin, who's a core member of Code and Supply's, operation, has moved on from IBM. So we don't have that same relationship with IBM itself, but we do still have friends there that help us with this community stuff. So the uniting factor is now no longer specific companies that are doing this, but the Code and Supply group, the organization around the concept of community.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
So I'm curious because having coming from a small town, so similar to Rust Belt town, very similar to Pittsburgh. I know that we're not in the Silicon Valley, we're not in New York City, yet I've been here a few times for your events, and it seems like there's actually like a huge tech community here in Pittsburgh. Have you seen kind of more, I don't want to use the term buy-in, but kind of more recognition from companies, or even you've cast a light on some companies that you wouldn't expect to be wanting to be involved in the tech community because they're not strictly speaking tech, but they do have technology as part of their core interest?
I would say that the companies in the city, sometimes yes. Sometimes I'm also surprised by how uninvolved companies will be and how insular they can be. Like, once someone is inside of a building, they don't talk to anyone outside of the building. Like, there's companies that are huge here that do technology that I've never met a single person from, even running all these community events. And there's also companies that are really small that you never would hear about if it wasn't for their participation in the community. So I think that's incredibly important. Like, anytime that a company has a chance to get involved through sponsorship or through sending people to speak, that's like, I've heard of so many companies that I never would have even thought to find. So, and they're right in our backyard. One of the things that when I was starting Code and Supply and said, like, we're at 800 members or whatever, and my friend was like, "Oh, when do you think you'll get or you'll never get to like 1,500 because I don't think there's 1,500 developers in Pittsburgh." And then I mean, we've hit that, and we're now at like almost 4,000 members in our community. So
Wow.
There's a lot of untapped community, which is really fascinating. Like, there's people that are working for big companies that are passionate about things, and even if their company doesn't buy in, they buy in, and they might get someone in their office excited about something. So yeah, there's a lot of dynamics there to discoverability of pockets of the community and buy-in.
So one of the things that I appreciated, as a speaker, but also as a vendor, with VictorOps being one of the sponsors, is that the communication to me coming, as a speaker of here's where we need, what we need from you, here's where you should stay hotel-wise, all that stuff came in very, almost like it was scripted out in a very specific cadence, like you had, a playbook of, well, 3 weeks out, I want to send them this information. Is that something you guys focus on, or something you focus on, or are you just kind of going off the cuff with that stuff?
I'm really glad it felt that way, because it was very not that way.
Okay.
Like, that's my eventual goal, is to basically have a conference button that I hit,
Mm-hmm.
and then like it knows, like, all right, enter this person as a speaker. They get this email on this date before the conference, and they get this email on this date before the conference. But I do a lot of really last minute planning, and I think that's a good thing in some ways, because it leads to a lot of serendipity and like fantastic moments that are born out of necessity and out of just like, I never would have thought of that until like I was really like, I dwell on things and then I think about what it should be, and then I get a good result because I've thought about it for so long.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm glad it seemed that way. Most of that, I think, is me being very particular.
Yeah.
Because I understand that what it takes to make a quality event. I don't want people to pay money for a ticket and then feel like they didn't get value out of it, or I don't want a sponsor to come to an event and feel like, they're not getting their money's worth out of sponsorship.
Yeah.
So, I want to make sure the event's really high quality. And that involves, like, especially with speakers, is communicating a lot to make sure, they know screen sizes and can optimize everything.
Mm-hmm.
But, I pick people for these curated conferences based on them being particularly awesome people, and particularly awesome people are particularly busy. So I know that I break up these emails into small chunks that someone that, is the CTO of like a giant company can just say yes.
Yeah.
Or can say, okay, here's my flight information, or
Mm-hmm.
something like that.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I mean, PJ and I do this often enough that I honestly don't need to hear from the organizers at all, other than have I been accepted and what day and time am I speaking, and I kind of just take care of the rest. But I think it goes a long way, especially for the vendor side, to know, here's the location, here's where you should send your stuff, and here's expectations around, do you have time on stage to do some sort of vendor pitch, and those types of things are really, really nice, because, again, if I put on my vendor hat, it's sometimes you don't know who's going to go and represent your company at those things, and you don't know how well versed they are in these conferences. Do they even know how these things work and what's expected? So kudos to you and the team for making it very clear, whether you're an attendee or speaker or a vendor, and I'm assuming the same for like volunteers and all that. It seemed like it was all very well organized and communicated. So great job.
And maybe I'll just take those Uptime emails and turn those into the templates.
It felt like that was
definitely
what you were
yeah.
Good to go.
Yeah, I think you should. And let us know if you're going to write open source some sort of system that automates that.
Yeah,
I think
just conference button.
a lot of us would love that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely very interesting. What would you say to someone who is maybe in a similar situation to where you were a few years ago, where they're concerned that their tech culture or their meetup culture is going to go away? What if someone wanted to duplicate something like what Code and Supply is doing? Is there advice you could give, or some sort of path?
I mean, one of the things is that I work a lot on it, Even when I had a full-time job, I was doing 20 hours a week worth of code and supply preparation and organization and marketing and whatever I could to make it a real thing. So it takes a lot of work for one. So I don't think that anyone should go at it and just be lazy about it and think it's just going to happen if they create a name. They need to actually care about bringing a large group of people together in the most welcoming way possible. And I do that, by being very inclusive. Because if you are welcoming to someone that is regularly not, felt that they are welcome, that means you're going to be welcoming to a lot of people. So being very inclusive and making sure you're writing things in the right way that everyone feels connected to it in some way and they're a part of something big. I try to have our events, they're not just a presentation. Like, I get up there and I start the event and I say what's going on in the community. I talk about what Code and Supply is doing as an organization, and then I start the event and it's all well branded, and there's a specific list of things every time that people can expect, and they feel like they're at something more significant than just a simple talk that could go well or could go poorly. So they feel like they're part of something bigger.
How do you know? It seems like on a micro level, all of these events that you put on sound very successful, and people a lot of good feedback. But what's success look like to you, and how do you sort of use that to up it, for the next event, or maybe 5 years from now? You talked about how you grew from 800 members to now over 4,000. Where do you see this going in 5 years, and how do you sort of define what the markers are?
I feel like that's an interview question. So where do you see yourself in 5 years?
So I certainly don't measure myself by those numbers of membership on that 4,000 numbers are meetup membership. I don't really measure myself by that too often. It's nice to look back at, but setting that as a goal has never been a thing I do. Just because I feel like it's easy to commit to that. It's easy to just click a join button and be part of something. But what I really kind of define success as is just regular participation by people in this community because they want to be a part of it. There's a lot of people that will drop in for an event, hope to get a job or hope to find some cheap developer work and not really be a part of the community. Mm-hmm. But getting people and creating real, authentic relationships between people that are interested in software and making their lives better is how I really measure it. Getting people better jobs, getting people that aren't into software into software so they can have a better life, and just improving everyone's life in some way. And then the more straightforward goal ideal would be to make it so that Code and Supply as an organization can be the only thing that I do. So finding a way that I can repeat these conferences and make it give me a salary just to run community, mm-hmm. like I like to do. So
yeah. Do you see this expanding outside of the Pittsburgh metro area into?
I don't think particularly. Part of what we've always been about is introducing people to our city, bringing people that wouldn't necessarily come here for an event to come here. Mm-hmm. And we've got the facilities to do a lot of what we can do. Sometimes struggle to get local sponsorship dollars. For Uptime, we went out of town a lot, which mm-hmm. Is good because we want to develop those relationships with good companies. That's probably the biggest limitation to being in Pittsburgh for these types of things is doing large-scale events like Uptime and Abstractions and finding the money for it. There's enough people to do things, and we have a good convention center that I can grow Abstractions to maybe 3,000 if I wanted to, so I can keep growing for a little bit there. And I don't know, maybe someday there would be like an Abstractions West or something, or Euro Abstractions or something like that. But I think that Code & Supply's home will always be Pittsburgh, and the majority of what we do will always be focused on that. So.
Good. Interesting. I think that's all the questions I have. I know we don't want to keep you to it because we're Justin is still legitimately running the conference right now. Like, we grabbed him for as long as we could. So usually we do a little bit of closing notes, kind of things to look out for that maybe have nothing to do with the community or what we're talking about or tools or anything like that. So if you have something like that, I'll go first so you get kind of an idea. And it's as usual.
Yeah, or you could do, if you've got any last words of advice for somebody who maybe wants to put on an event like this, or sort of follow in your footsteps.
Or also maybe what the next event's going to be.
Yeah, whatever you'd like to talk about.
What the next event's going to be, I have proposals to do an Abstractions 2 that I'm not super happy about the dates, so we'll see if it happens. But I got to decide within the next month or so. So, by the time you edit this, I'll have to have a decision. So, maybe that will be announceable. But if anyone else wanted to do something like this, I think that you got to surround yourself with reliable people. Know the battles to pick. Care about the quality. And don't let people waste your time. It's an important one, because there's a lot of people that want to, air quotes, be involved with the community that don't want to commit. So learn to not waste your time on those and focus on the important things, because that's when you can really do something well.
Very cool. You got any checkouts? Or?
So checkouts. So I didn't have one until this morning, actually. And as usual, my checkout is about a band. A band that I loved in the 90s. They only ever made 2 albums. The band's called Quicksand. Kind of post-hardcore from New York City. And I just found out this morning that they've signed a deal with Epitaph Records. They're coming out with a new album for the first time in 25 years. And I'm really looking forward to that. So I know that the first track's already on Spotify, so you can check that out.
Cool. Well, I'll say for sure, let's check out Code & Supply. Is it codeandsupply.com? Is that the
.co.
.co?
Although .com probably redirects.
Okay.
I think it does.
So check out the site and learn more about what's going on here. Hop on Twitter and just check out the hashtag Uptime Conf. You'll see a lot of great content. There's been
great
some
pictures,
awesome speakers. Yeah, great photos, quotes. I mean, it's just sort of a play-by-play of exactly all the highlights of what's been going on. So
for those people listening to this, you'll find out what you missed.
Yeah, the Twitter stream's been great. On a personal note, let's see. I've been so busy lately, I haven't really come up with anything new to sort of share with you.
You wrote a book.
Oh, I did write a book. I guess I could share about that. I finished a book with O'Reilly on post-incident reviews, so AKA postmortems, and you can get that at bit.ly/PIR. It was a capital PIR _book. Other than that, another book I'm reading actually is We Are Legion, We Are Bob, which I think it's been out for a little while, but somebody shared this with me. It's kind of a fun sci-fi book, and I haven't read something like that in a long time. It was really good to just disconnect with, I typically read business-minded books and things about uptime and stuff like that. So,
especially after just writing a book, I think it's good to maybe delve into fiction and fantasy for a little bit.
I was totally tapped out. Thankfully, right when I got done with the book, I got to go on a little bit of a break to the Telluride Bluegrass Festival and listening to bluegrass and reading this book, We Are Legion, We Are Bob. So I recommend it for sure, especially if you like kind of cheesy sci-fi fantasy stuff. So,
do you have anything not Code & Supply, not Uptime related?
I'll do one shameless pitch, and then I'll do one thing that's shameful. Well, I guess this is shameful. The scholarship fund, which we didn't really talk about, is at codeandsupply.fund. So I think that's important to pitch in this kind of moment. And then when I was trying to think of things that have been getting my attention lately, I thought about like what I'm gonna do this weekend after the conference, and I'm probably just gonna play Sonic Mania on Switch because it's like
Because you've earned it.
classic Sonic the Hedgehog, and I'm just super happy that's good. So yeah, that's what's been fun for me lately.
Very
Awesome.
cool.
Well,
Very
congratulations on an awesome event. I look forward to having coming back next year and being part of it again. So
cool. Absolutely. Next year we'll do a karaoke party.
Yes.
Yeah.
Has to happen.
We'll have the time to actually do it,
yeah.
to actually plan it.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us in another episode of the Community Pulse. We've got Justin Reese from Code and Supply and also Uptime Conf, and of course PJ. I'm at Jason Hand on Twitter, like I said earlier. Follow us at community_pulse, and I guess we'll talk to you next time.
We'll see you then.
Bye, everybody.